This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby. Breaking news, WABC.
And a lot of new details coming out here on Katz and Cosby about this second assassination attempt against former President Trump. And boy, it looks worse and worse. We're now finding out that the guy was lying in wait basically for 12 hours right there on the fence line outside of the golf course in Florida. So many questions tonight. We're going to be covering it all. And joining us now is Judge Richard Weinberg. We also have George Venizelos, of course, who was head of the FBI in New York and also an agent for 24 years, and also former Congressman Peter King. What an incredible moment. And boy, oh boy, John, you know, as we're sitting here talking, what an amazing, extraordinary, and also horrible breakdown, I think, the fact that somebody got that close to the president, again, the former president.
Well, I just landed a half hour ago, and I'm here. And I was listening to Bo Schnerdley, and he had some great points. How can the Secret Service miss them?
Yes, he was sitting there 12 hours, we're just finding out.
Well, how can he miss him when they shot at him?
Yes, that's another thing, too. Number two,
Bo Schnerdley, I'm repeating Bo Schnerdley's story. Number two, that the only reason they caught him is somebody took a picture of his car and license plate.
Yeah, and guess what, John? It gets worse. That was actually a stolen license plate. It wasn't attached to that vehicle. It was somebody who saw him running out, and it turns out took a picture,
gave it to the cops.
Yes,
and it was the cops that caught him. It wasn't the Secret Service. It was the cops that caught him on their own.
And guess what, John?
And Bo Schnerdley, I'm just repeating. Bo
go ahead.
Bo said that if the cops didn't catch him in that Palm Beach County, the one above Palm Beach, then he still might be missing.
Right, and it was on I-95 where they stopped him. Thank God. By the way, he didn't open fire on a busy I-95 interstate. The other thing, George, you know what? He hits an important point. John hits an important point that he was recounting about Bo. The fact that the guy was in it had a stolen license plate. It was just an eyewitness. What it says to me also is this was premeditated, and nobody knew at that point that President Trump was going.
More to this. The other stories I hear, he was out rooting, hiring Afghanistanis to go fight the war in Ukraine. So who is he working for?
Whose side is this guy on?
Who is he working for? Zelensky?
There's no evidence of that.
Some intelligence agency? I have no idea.
No, I think what this guy is one class nut job.
Yeah, no. You are swallowing that too fast. I don't.
I'm with the story.
King. The story. Yeah, you could be with Peter King all the way. He still believes January 6th.
I'm right on that.
You're not right on that.
You and Trump by yourself.
Come on. Let's skip January 6th. Let's talk about what happened.
Let's skip January 6th because the Supreme Court kicked out a lot of those cases. So go ahead.
Whoa. That has nothing to do with it at all. That's totally off the base.
I know you don't agree with January 6th, but let's focus on this.
What I'm saying about January 6th, Peter, there's more to the story than we know about.
What are a lot of stories?
Yeah, sure. There's more to the story than we know about. And with the former speaker saying what she said on tape.
Which means nothing.
It means nothing, but it means more than we knew before.
Absolutely. Let's go to this one because this is a biggie here. Where I agree also, and here's where I have a problem. And I'm curious, George Venizelos, with all your experience, here we are. The guy is sitting there for 12 hours outside. I'm glad the Secret Service guy got him. Thank goodness, right? Shot at him. Obviously, as John points out,
He missed,
but he did shoot 4 to 6 shots. And maybe that's what triggered the witness to suddenly get a shot, or who knows?
I can't see that well, but I would have shot him.
Yeah, you would have, John. My bet would have been on you.
Was he in plain sight or was he hidden? That's the thing.
Well, apparently there's
He just
brush.
saw a muzzle. They saw a muzzle
I'm
through the
sorry,
fence.
you are the Secret Service. You just have a shooting 2 months ago of the former president. You better cover every area, and you better have it from the sky.
I'm not saying
Give
that.
me a break. 12 hours.
No, I'm talking about
She's
missing the
sounding like
shot.
Maria
I'm talking
Bartiromo.
about missing the shot. I'm not talking about anything else.
Yeah,
Missing the
but
shot.
I'm just saying, and I'm talking about the fact he was sitting there 12 hours according to his cell phone data, which is what we're getting. So he was waiting there, I can tell you, it was from like 1 a.m. on Sunday morning till 1:30 a.m. How could that be? How could that be?
I know it's being reported all over the news, this 12-hour thing, but, where does that information coming from? That's what I don't want to say.
They say it came from the cell phone, George.
Let's see.
They say, but George, your point's well taken.
But where's
Just
that
because it's on a cell phone doesn't mean he was physically there.
No, but the fact that he was there is disturbing enough.
Right.
I mean, I don't care if he was there 10 hours, 2 hours, 4
Yeah,
hours.
and you know what troubles me, you guys? I'm going back to the license plate because it shows this guy had pre-planning, that he's sitting there. He had the ceramic plates. If you see the way it's set up, it looks like he was ready for shots to come at him, and he was ready for a firing range. I mean, the way they're set up, it's like he's protecting himself and in position.
Rita, before you take the congresswoman that's on hold right now, I was on Sid Show this morning from St. Pete. And I said that there's got to be more to the story than we know about, and I think we have to wait it out.
Okay.
But there's the advice. I said the advice I'm giving President Trump. If President Trump gets elected, the Iranians tend to lose hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions. What's another bullet to the Iranians? They're going to try to get him. Number
I
one.
agree with that.
Number two, then also there's a lot of people that have done a lot of wrong things in the United States of America, from Washington to New York to Georgia. They don't want President Trump elected.
And there's another issue here, by the way. You have the whole rhetoric, the hatred, the Trump hatred, and the escalating rhetoric that he's a threat to democracy, and that encourages some nut jobs.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I
When
mean,
you have that kind of rhetoric and you got a loose screw,
exactly. And
absolutely.
That's no different than terrorists, lone wolves.
Yes.
You have somebody sitting in the basement looking for a purpose in life. They buy into this rhetoric. They feel they could save the world because how they're thinking. And they go out and they try stupid things like this.
Guess what? Thank
dangerous.
goodness it wasn't an Iranian sharpshooter this time. Because guess what? That guy wouldn't have missed the shot.
I don't think if the Iranians, if they would have. They're good.
I'm just
They're
saying,
good.
I'm not blaming the
sadly.
Iranians.
They wouldn't have missed anything.
That's what I'm saying to you, George. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Rita, one more thing. My advice to President Trump is do what President Biden did, or Vice President at the time. Go hide in the basement someplace.
You know
and
what?
he's not going to do it.
No, he's not
good
going to
advice.
do it. I
Let me
know.
tell you, hide in the
good
basement
advice.
sometime. How's the words go? Hunker down.
Yeah, hunker down.
You know why? If he gets elected November 5th, he no longer will be in danger of getting assassinated because they get somebody worse, Vance.
Yeah, and the other problem.
But he has to get elected first.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. You're saying they're worried. You mean worse because they're worried. Those folks who are worried about Trump coming in are going to worry.
From Iran's perspective,
right,
they will
fear. I want our audience to understand where he's coming from.
They
Right.
will fear Vance more
Yeah,
than they
I
fear
agree.
Trump.
Okay. Right, that's an interesting point.
The American people get awfully mad, and the American people will do what happened. Look what George W. Bush did after 9/11. He went in there to Iraq, whether Iraq was guilty or not guilty.
He went to the wrong country.
He went to the I agree with you. He went to Iraq. He went to Afghanistan.
He went everywhere, yeah.
I'm telling the people, the terrorists of foreign shores, beware of Americans being mad.
Yes. Well, we haven't got, and sadly, I hate to say it, our president today was disgraceful. They were asking him a question today, John, and he was like, oh, yeah, I'm glad he's okay. Let's move on, basically. It was terrible. We need strong leadership, to your point. Let's go to Congresswoman Kat Cammack, who joins us now from Florida.
Lady.
I love her. That's why we love her. Congresswoman, you're like me, so
She's
go
probably
ahead.
saying, what am I coming
it.
into here?
I love it, Congresswoman. Bring it on, baby. You can tell I'm revved up today. Your thoughts about all this?
Yeah, you are.
You're not revved up.
Congresswoman, go ahead. Your thoughts.
Listen, I'm like you guys. I was pissed off. I don't know if I can say that on air, but I just did. But last night I was angry. And being a good millennial, I immediately started cruising the internet for any sort of trace of information about this guy once we got his name. And there was a lot of information that got posted out to social media. And I think we have to be exceptionally careful to maintain that credibility in what we're posting. And so I wanted to make sure that we were double checking, triple checking that this was the person, that this was real, it was authentic, because it really speaks to his motivation. And one piece that I was able to actually grab before Mark Zuckerberg and the Meta team shut his accounts down was a post from a couple years ago where he posted a map of Israel, and it said that it was a map of Palestine. And he made some obscure off-the-wall comment effectively to the point of, he said, well, it looks like Israel never existed in the first place, which to me immediately, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. My red flags are going off. Immediately I'm thinking, this guy harbors some serious anti-Semitic beliefs. And he knows that President Trump will always stand with Israel. And so that was something that stood out to me about this guy and his motivations. He's clearly a disturbed individual. You have to be in order to be in a position to do what he did. And so I think that's something important to point out, that now that it has been verified that was in fact his account, his actual postings, that we need to talk about that. The second thing is, and you brought it up, was the rhetoric. There has been far too much anti-Trump rhetoric in the media, so much so that last night, and I was just so angry. And of course, I think we preach to the choir too much as conservatives. So I flipped on CNN to see what the other side was saying, and it was disgusting. Erin Burnett said at one point in an interview, she said, "Listen, this may be crass, but let's be clear. This is also he can raise money," effectively insinuating that Donald Trump planned this, that this has all been a setup, like it's some giant conspiracy theory, that they, the CNN talking heads, bear no responsibility for their role in ratcheting up the environment and the temperature in the country as it relates to Donald Trump and political violence. It's just disgusting. It's so bad. And I think we need to be digging into this guy's background. But I mean, Americans need to be outraged for the failures. We need to be holding the media accountable, but also those damn members of Congress that have been saying that he's a threat to democracy for how many years? 8+ years now? What did they expect was going to happen?
Yeah, Kat, this is former Congressman Pete King. Great to have you on. I agree with you totally on the rhetoric. If you're calling a guy Hitler, a Nazi, a fascist, who wants to bring down the government, that's just going to inspire all those wackos sitting down in the basement, or guys who have mental issues to begin with, people who want to make a name for themselves. So you're right. The rhetoric, they got to tone that down on the other side. They got to cut it back. It's really disgraceful. And the fact that the media goes along with it, to me, makes it even worse.
Yes, 1,000%. I mean, and I think the Trump team did a very good job compiling a list of examples in the last year alone where members of Congress, sitting senators, prominent figures in the Democrat Party, and media had called Donald Trump and Republicans a threat to democracy, going so far as to say he needed to be eliminated. A New York congressman, Dan Goldman, he himself said Donald Trump needed to be eliminated. Has he come out and apologized? No. It's funny, they're all radio silent when it comes to this kind of stuff. But the second that there's anything else, it's always, a political statement. Now, you don't hear a word from these people.
Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida, I have to read you this post because this just, I was so furious. This is from Alexander Vindman's wife. Everybody's talking about this. He was the staffer, remember, who kind of had obviously.
She's running for Congress.
And she's running for, thank you for reminding, that's right. She's running for Congress in Virginia, right, Pete? Yes, in Pete.
District 7, yeah.
Exactly, in Virginia. Here's what she said. Running for Congress in Virginia, right after the shooting, within minutes. No ears were harmed. Carry on with your Sunday afternoon. How disgusting is that, Congresswoman Kat Kamik? That is shameful.
It is. It's so disgusting that I saw her tweet and I reposted it with a little note to the Twitter X universe saying her brother-in-law is running for Congress. Please help end his campaign by donating to the true patriot in the race, Derek Anderson. And I sent out his campaign link to donate. And now 122,000 people from around the country have viewed that tweet, and they're donating. And I was just talking to Derek Anderson right before this interview, asking if there's been any developments on his end. And he said, honestly, people need to understand how much of a problem this man is, that he is raising so much money from dark money, big government, swamp type sources, and he needs a lot of help. So donate to Derek Anderson, everybody. If you don't want that total swamp creature who has continually
and to say this rhetoric is just despicable. John?
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something from my experience. A guy like this is going out recruiting Afghanistanis to fight in Ukraine. Somebody's paying for him.
Well, and that's why I brought up the license plate, John, because there was a lot of planning. And also, listen, we all know that President Trump, everybody knows he likes to golf.
It could be the Iranians. It could be the Pakistanis. It could be anybody.
But I'll tell you one other thing. This is interesting that I heard today. This was from the sheriff who was in the press conference today. He just said a little bit ago that he cannot rule out that there may be somebody else, because he keeps going back to the fact that the guy was there 12 hours, that changed license plates. He also goes to the fact that this guy, that we didn't know that Trump was going to be. Trump does golf a lot on Sundays. I have been to that course, so I know that course. But the issue is even some of his own campaign staff didn't know he was still in West Palm Beach, didn't know he was golfing. It was a private. It wasn't on the schedule. What are your questions right now, Congresswoman?
Well, certainly, that's the thing. There's so many things that we don't have the answers to, and I'm very curious if he is talking to law enforcement. Is he completely lawyered up and shut down? What is the current status? We really don't have a clear sense of what the progression has been in the investigation up until this point. Tomorrow we will be in Congress receiving a briefing, hopefully about what the latest is. I know the speaker has spoken to President Trump, and we've just been getting some stuff back channeled to us in the meantime. But, to your point, though, I mean, I myself have been to that golf course. It is right there on a very, very busy road. And so this guy, if he is as mentally unstable as we all believe he is, it's not so far-fetched that he has, he stood there for 12 hours. We know his cell phone was pinging there for 12 hours. And there could be a number of reasons for that. But
yep.
I think that he's probably done the most logical reasoning in my mind in how he found out that Trump was there. If you've been around...
We have a retired... Was he Secret Service now?
He's Secret Service, yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, he's calling back now shortly. He's calling back now. What would be the big questions you'd have for him? He's going to be joining us in a second.
Question that I would have would be, is the only advanced work that the Secret Service is providing, is it literally just immediately in the moment, or are they doing advanced planning and scouting of a location hours in advance? Who is responsible on the ground? Is it the Miami field office that is coordinating advanced teams? How much of the local law enforcement are they relying on? And once again, I come back to this. We saw this as a failure in the Pennsylvania rally that President Trump was shot. What kind of communication barriers have there continued to be that have prevented them from from being more proactive in these situations? I mean, that's just some of the things that I would want to know. But I think to your point, John, you talked about Iran. I now am thinking with your sense as well as what I saw myself, that post, and I'll text it to you. This man seems to harbor some very, very strong opinions about Israel not existing.
Somebody's paying him.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
Okay, let's move on. Thank you,
Congresswoman. Thank you. We love you. You're great. Thank you. And joining us now is retired Secret Service agent of 25 years, Richard Staropoli. Richard, you know this area. You know the golf course. How could this happen?
How could this happen is the Secret Service has become so heavily politicized that for the last 2 years, they've continued to drop more and more Secret Service coverage, providing President Trump with a level of coverage usually reserved for somebody the likes of Jimmy Carter or even Bill Clinton or your typical candidate. And President Trump is anything but a typical candidate. This guy, from the day one that he was out of office, should have been afforded the senior-most levels and the maximum levels of protection that the Secret Service can afford. If you ask anyone, with the exception of the Secret Service, who the number one target in the world is, they're going to tell you it is Donald J. Trump. Yet, for some reason, the Secret Service has failed to realize that, as has the Department of Homeland Security.
What years were you there at the Secret Service?
I was there from 1991 until 2004. Prior to that, I was a student at your old school, NYU School of Engineering.
Wow. So now, Richard, let's go through, because you know the golf course, you know the brush. I was watching you where you were saying your son even lost, I think it was like a golf ball in the area. I've been to that golf course, and I know exactly how close that area is to the street. You tell me why they did not have eyes in the sky after he had an assassination attempt on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's a disgrace.
Well, I've said this many times. The Secret Service has been using helicopters since Igor Sikorsky invented them. Yet for some reason, they decided not to afford President Trump the use of a helicopter. If you simply would have put that helicopter in the air over that golf course, or let's go back 2 months and put it over the event site in Butler, you now have established communications with every asset you could possibly have. I would have gone to the Florida State Police, said, I need a helicopter. They would have sent me a marked Florida State Police helicopter, 2 pilots that are in full communication with the entire Florida State Police, as well as the 911 system. I put a Secret Service agent in the back seat. He's got his own communications, and a local, in this case, Martin County police officer, and we have full communications in a marked helicopter flying over that site. We have communications equipment and optics that can do infrared, forward-looking infrared, as well as thermal imaging, and we solve this entire problem and take away the opportunity for anyone to hide in the bushes or certainly lay on top of a roof.
Richard, John Katzman-Tides.
Yes, sir.
Now, you've been there a long time, and to me, something smells. There's something we don't know.
I totally agree with you. And I think the smell is right here. While I'm hesitant to say this is a conspiracy in the sense where, someone left a gate open or left a lock unlocked, there's certainly collusion here. There is no way the senior leadership of the Secret Service doesn't afford President Trump the maximum level of protection and does that independently without consulting the Secretary of Homeland Security, who the director of the Secret Service answers to, the White House, now who that is, I can't tell you exactly, as well as gets high cover from the Attorney General. The things that went on here was so negligent and so conspicuous that there's no way the Secret Service does this independently.
What I said before, Richard, was there's something rotten in Washington. We used to say Denmark. We don't say Denmark
I'm
anymore.
half Danish, so I'm glad you moved away from that.
Okay, I mean,
there you go.
Something smells, and we have to just figure it out. And the person is, if the Department of Justice is not with us, who's gonna get it out?
Well, this is the problem, right? And this is what's permeated the entire Biden-Harris administration, right? The last thing Joe Biden did was when they propped him up during the inauguration and, fake Dr. Jill held up his right hand and he got sworn in and then turned the country over to his communist staff, right? That's where it all started. There are no repercussions for not doing anything. Nobody gets fired. Nobody gets held accountable. And we've seen this time and time again in this entire administration. It's unacceptable. The American public is completely incensed by it, and that should be reflected in the voting, which will occur in 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Richard, I look forward to talking more to you because I was around the White House those years with President Clinton, and I had a circle zero clearance. So we'll talk some more.
That, sir. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard, very much. And John, we're going to take a quick break. We have Michael Goodwin on his thoughts on the assassination, and also Kamala did finally an interview with the local ABC affiliate. Wow. Did anybody understand it?
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing.
We're going to talk about that after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. What an enormous news day after this second attempted assassination of President Trump. Also, how is the White House handling it or not handling it? To talk about all of this, let's go to Michael Goodwin, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist. Michael, before we get into your story about Kamala's interview, I have to ask you your thoughts on just so many unanswered questions on this attempted assassination, and some of the details are worse and worse.
Good evening. Yes, Rita, it is. It's shocking, first of all, and I think for most of us, of course, it's about Donald Trump explicitly, but it's also about a further unraveling of any kind of civil society when you have politicians being targeted. Now, Donald Trump has been targeted twice, as we all know. I do believe it's very much owing not just to the Democratic Party's rhetoric about him, but also to the mainstream media's. I mean, they have gone along with this idea that he's a threat to democracy. And look, you call someone a threat to America, democracy, our way of life, whatever you want to add to that. Once you've labeled them a threat, a danger, as Joe Biden frequently says, then it's not a great leap for some people that I must eliminate that threat, or that threat must be eliminated, and if no one else will do it, I will. So I do believe it's directly applied, directly leads back to that rhetoric that comes from the party, and it comes from the media, which echoes this and which has said very much the same thing. And then, of course, you have the extreme cases of the people on MSNBC in particular, who essentially have been calling for this. I mean, the way they talk about him, it leads you to no other conclusion that this is something they want. I mean, it's not quite like that Kathy Griffin used to be a comedian holding up the bloody head, a cartoonish mask of Trump with a blood like a Halloween character. Who thought of making things like that? When has that ever been okay in American society? But it's become normalized.
Yeah, to call him Hitler, to like all of the stuff. It's disgraceful, Michael Goodwin. It is disgraceful. As someone in the business of broadcasting, you and I have been in it for decades. It is I just found it so disgusting that within the same breath that NBC was reporting about the shooting, 5 seconds later they said, and let's not forget some of the comments that him and J.D. Vance have made, like blaming it on them, blaming it on the victim. That's disgusting.
And look, those of us, you, me, everyone in your studio, we're in the business where words matter. We know that. We try to select our words carefully. Sometimes we make mistakes or whatever, but you don't sort of pull off or push the pedal to the metal all the way and say anything you want. And that's what they've done. They've removed the normal inhibitions, and I believe this leads to B. I believe there's a direct connection to how they've described him.
I do too. Judge Weinberg.
Michael, you had the same situation when Chuck Schumer went up on the steps of the Supreme Court of the United States, attacked judges by name, and then you had an armed guy going to Kavanaugh's house, Justice Kavanaugh's house, and it was just lucky they stopped him from breaking in and killing Justice Kavanaugh. That's not a coincidence either, Michael. It's the inflamed rhetoric we're talking about.
Yes, look, I think what has happened in the left is that it's become unhinged by the Donald Trump election in 2016. I think Democrats were Charles Krauthammer had this great line that Republicans think Democrats are wrong. Democrats think Republicans are evil. And so there's always been a base of that in the left about conservatives. But now I think in the era of Trump has unleashed that feeling. They've licensed it. They said it's okay. You can feel that way. You can talk that way. Well, then you can act that way, too. I mean, the shootings of the congressional baseball field that time, Steve Scalise and others, that there would have been a mass slaughter if there had not been armed Capitol Police there to take out the shooter. I mean, this is what's going on, and I do believe the left has done this to our society.
Pete King.
Hey, Michael, first of all, great to have you as always. Do you think the media are going to become even more deranged? The fact that after the debate, which it's concededly Harris did better than Trump, the numbers have not changed at all? I mean, I think they expected Trump to collapse after that. If anything, he's as strong or maybe even stronger since the debate, which to me is going to drive the media even more crazy.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. You can almost imagine the Democrats saying, we had him, and then this idiot goes out and tries to kill him. Now what are we going to do? I mean, because the assassination attempt will also help him, too. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention what I think is still an uncorrected mistake here, and that is the ABC handling of the debate. I'm sure you're all aware of the affidavit that Mark Penn has produced, that others are talking about, that there's got to be an internal investigation. I focused on, in my column Sunday, what Lindsay Davis, one of the moderators, told a writer for the Los Angeles Times after the debate for a profile he was doing her. It was a laudatory profile. She's a rising star, blah, blah, blah. In it, she talks about how they watched hours and hours of Trump tape and speeches and everything about how he answered questions. And they then asked the questions. They selected these questions to ask him to get the answers that they could then correct. And so this whole idea that they spontaneously corrected him is not true. They plotted this whole thing this way, and that they corrected him 5 times. At least 2 times they were in error themselves, and never corrected Kamala Harris.
Right. That's the issue. And that's the issue, Michael.
And that affidavit says they promised they would not correct her. Yeah. That was part of the deal they got from her to appear in the debate. So I don't know if that affidavit is true. We don't know who's issuing it. He says he's an employee of ABC.
Yeah, keep us posted. By the way, Michael, definitely keep us posted because that is so important. Michael, we love having you on. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And what are we doing? Are we going to take a break? We've got some hot news first before we take Congressman D'Esposito coming up.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And obviously the hot news of the day is all about the second assassination attempt. The man accused of that on former President Trump made his first court appearance this morning. Ryan Ruth appeared in shackles in a federal courthouse in West Palm Beach. Also, in response to the second assassination attempt in just 2 months against President Trump, obviously, as you just heard with Michael Goodwin, the conversation has centered around rhetoric. Trump has accused President Biden and Vice President Harris of dangerous rhetoric, given that they have called him a threat to democracy and so much more. And those are the big headlines of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Katzimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC.
And with us today is Congressman D'Esposito. Congressman, how are we doing? What are your thoughts?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
Good. By the way, did you endorse AM radio yet?
I, of course, sure did.
Okay.
I was one of the first.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah. What's your reaction? What are your questions? You're on the Homeland Security Committee. I can't imagine what's going on in your mind about the second assassination attempt.
Yeah, listen, I think that there are plenty of questions that need to be answered. Obviously, there's questions as to if someone knew President Trump's schedule as to where he was going to be and when he was going to be at that golf course. Obviously, there's concerns about the scale of his details. Should it be increased? Are there other resources that need to be obligated to him? I mean, the fact that President Trump has been attempted to be assassinated twice in what, now 9 weeks is a real problem. And unfortunately, because of the rhetoric coming from the Democrats, it seems like the violence is only getting worse.
Yeah, it is. And what are your thoughts about also the fact that this guy, we've been talking, premeditation, he changed the plates. He was sitting there for 12 hours lying in wait. How could this be?
Right. I mean, those are the questions that we continue to answer and ask, I should say. And it goes back to, what happened at Butler. There are so many questions that still need to be answered.
And this is Pete King. As a former cop, what questions would you have? How would you have done it differently, do you think?
I would like to know first, how far was the radius that they set up around Trump, and who was allowed in it? Who went in there prior and did a search of the area to see if there was anybody in the vicinity? Who were they using as? Were there snipers in the area? Were there people that were supposed to be doing surveillance? Where were they? Were there enough people? I mean, I think these are all pretty, easy, logical questions that need to be answered. But we continue to see instances like this where, this is a very different situation from Butler. This isn't one of those, was this again an issue where there was failed communication between the local agencies and the Secret Service, or was this solely on the Secret Service?
Congressman, there was one revelation yesterday, last night. I was listening to the radio, and Curtis was interviewing Andrew Giuliani, and Andrew Giuliani plays a lot of golf with the president. And I believe, and I will check with Curtis, he's still in the studio someplace. I believe Curtis said that Andrew Giuliani on the air said to him that he was much closer than the 300 to 500 feet that the Secret Service or whoever gave that report. 300 to 500 yards, I think they said. I think Andrew Giuliani said he thought it was closer to 50 yards. One second.
Yeah, we'll try to
studio.
Yeah, we'll try to get that.
See if Curtis is here still.
Yeah, see if we can get that confirmed.
Let's go. We can get that confirmed.
I mean, either way, it's close. By the way, and we have George Venizelos in the studio. Say even if it is 300 to 500. I mean, if it's either way, that's an easy shot. Yeah, 300 to 500 yards
is a lot.
Yeah,
compared to
with
50.
A gun like that.
Yeah, but either way, that's an easy
with a
shot.
Scope?
That's an easy shot. He had a scope.
Yeah.
Right, but I think the real question is anybody who was in the perimeter, regardless of how long the distance was, if they were in the perimeter that was set up by the Secret Service and someone infiltrated that perimeter without us knowing or without the Secret Service and the law enforcement professionals on the ground knowing, that is really where the problem lies.
Exactly.
All right, guys, thanks so much, Congressman. We'll keep you posted.
We'll let you know what Curtis says.
Yeah, we're looking for it right now. Thank you, Congressman.
Thanks,
great to have you here. And joining us now is Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Really quick, we have a lot of stuff on the foreign news front. The one issue, the Houthis firing into Israel, ragtag group now firing into Israel. And you also probably heard this about Zelensky. Zelensky saying, we're not getting enough weapons from the West, we're losing. Crazy times. Your thoughts, real quick, General.
Yeah, I'll go super fast for you. On the Zelensky piece, you throw money and weapons at stuff without diplomacy and strategy, and you have a disaster on your hands. And that's what Zelensky is complaining about. We can't produce weapons as fast as he needs them to support a World War I style warfare. Let's go to the Houthis.
General, do you trust Zelensky?
No, that I don't.
I don't either.
I'm not in a trust position with him. There are members.
I agree. I don't either.
That I trust.
Let's move
members
on.
of his government that I do trust. On the Houthis, they're going to pay a heavy price for that. But at the same time, it gets back to this wider discussion about Israel is going to create a cost imposition for all of her enemies. The Houthis, though, firing a hypersonic missile, that is a game changer. That means that Russian technology and Iranian technology is going into the hands of the proxies. That escalates. That makes this a very dangerous world. That means that the Israelis are going to have to be far more aggressive in their approach to the Houthis and the rest of this war.
You know, how concerned should we be about Iran now with all these threats against President Trump? They have come out and said, we know that Pakistani guy was planning to do it courtesy of Iran. I want to pivot because you're talking about Iran. This is an enormous issue. We just had a second assassination attempt against President Trump, and we know Iran doesn't want him in office.
There is no question that Iran, which has been largely funded by this administration and the Obama administration, is a clear and present danger to the United States. We need to secure our election system and our republic. One way to do that is paper ballots, one-day counting, and the SAVE Act. And that's what we have to do from a national perspective, security perspective, not how you feel about voter disenfranchisement because they had to show an ID.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, General, thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us on such an important day. Thank you.
And right now, we still have a blockbuster show to go. Bill O'Reilly was going to be standing by him. Let's take a break, and we're going to be coming back with Bill O'Reilly, and we're going to run overtime.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And we are back here on Katz and Cosby. Joining us is mega best-selling author, also host of Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly. Bill, your thoughts about the fact now we're getting more and more details about the second assassination attempt against Trump.
Well, let's do it from a political point of view. I've been listening, and I think you've got the logistics covered. So this is the 9th attack on a U.S. president. 7 of them I write about in my new book, Confronting the Presidents. 4 were fatal. Lincoln, James Garfield, William McKinley, and John F. Kennedy. The others were Gerald Ford, who survived it, didn't get hit. Ronald Reagan almost died. And Teddy Roosevelt got shot in the chest, only saved by his speech, which was folded in his breast pocket. I didn't obviously write about the 2 Trump attempts because they happened after publication. So what it says to me and to all Americans is that we live in a dangerous country. It has always been dangerous. And it's not a flaw of the American character. It is just the circumstances of history. We had a violent revolution. Our westward expansion was plagued by warfare with Native Americans. We had to defend ourselves constantly against Europe. So we live in a violent society today, and people should understand that. Now, if I'm Donald Trump, I want to win the election above all else, and I'm given 2 chances to course correct. The first time in July, he took it and had a very successful convention. Everybody remembers that. But then pivot took place, and he went back into the personal realm. And that is not helping Donald Trump. 2 examples. The Cocker Spaniel eating in Ohio, which was totally absurd. You can make your point on facts. You don't have to go into fantasy. And a small one, but still telling, I hate Taylor Swift, which he tweeted before this latest incident in Florida. A sitting president who served 4 years doesn't have to do that. He has a record. So if I were Donald Trump, I would take this opportunity now that the world is again focused on him solely, and that will recede quickly. And here's what I would do, and I want to get your guys' recommendation on this. I would put out a statement, and I would ask Vice President Harris to sign the statement after I put it out, calling for a lowering of hatred, a de-intensifying of political rhetoric in this country on all sides. I would do that for the good of the nation. I believe that if he did that, he would win in November. And it would raise him up, because he needs to persuade people who are on the fence that he is not only a good politician, but a good man. And boy, if he did that, I will tell you guys, that would be a game changer. What do you think?
I'll just tell you, Bill, I'm shaking my head. I agree with you. I actually think that would be powerful. And I'll, on the flip side also, Bill, I wish we were hearing more from the president and the vice president. You know, President Biden, it was very thin.
They're not going to tell you anything more because, they're not running the show. It's people behind them that are running the show.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a sad fact. You're right, John. And you know what's also sad? that the president or whoever's running the show should be saying, you just had a second assassination attempt against a former president, the nominee on the Republican side, and we're barely hearing anything from the White House, whoever's running the show.
And I believe that Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, should stand up and tell the American people if he's getting any contrary information from anybody at the Department of Justice. I'm not going to point any fingers. But if somebody's giving him orders from the Department of Justice not to do his job the way he feels it should be done, then he should have the courage to stand up and say enough is enough.
Your thoughts, Bill?
Well, I don't think that the FBI is compromised, and I don't think that there's any conspiracy. If you look at the 9 attempts on the president, they all have one thing in common. All of these people were mentally ill, as this man is. You can tell right away by his postings, the guy from Hawaii is in custody, and the one in Butler, Pennsylvania, is dead. These are people who are mentally ill, and there are millions of them running around, and that's the price of freedom. So we can't just throw people in asylums here. It's almost impossible now to get people off the street who are unbalanced. So I don't believe it's conspiracy, but I do believe that, and I know for a fact, the hatred in this country, political hatred, is at its highest level since the Civil War. And that Donald Trump has been the recipient of that hatred. And if he would just make a statement, as I just suggested, boy, that would turn everything over. As far as Biden and Harris saying anything, they don't know what to say.
And that's a sad fact, Bill. I agree with you, but they should.
Maybe they should, but they've never, if you trace both of their histories, never been leaders. Ever.
Yeah, that's why we're in the mess we are. I agree with you. But
they're not
it's sad.
Creative people. They're not problem solvers. They're problem creators. And for those people who are listening to WABC right now, who may vote for Kamala Harris because they hate Trump so much, I want to direct you to my column on BillO'Reilly.com that I filed yesterday. Okay, that basically goes down without any emotion. It's called Reimagining Kamala Harris. What she will attempt to do if she wins. And I think you'll be shocked. And I take this off what she's done in the past and the California model, which he 100% supports. And I don't think Americans have any idea how radical left this woman really is and what she wants, her vision for America. And Donald Trump absolutely has a right to define that in a very clear way. And I would do that all day long, in addition to touting my 4 years. This is what we accomplished when I was in office. But I would knock off the personal stuff.
Yeah, no, I hear where you're. By the way, I think that's a brilliant idea about this statement. I agree. Now the question is, let me ask you, Bill, you talked about Kamala Harris. I read your column, but explain to folks where this could be headed, what America could look like resembling California.
I just go down the list. The woman wants the federal government, just like Sacramento. California is a one-party state. Okay, it doesn't have any balance at all. Sacramento Democrats, most of whom are radical, control every move the California citizens make. We are getting there in New York. We're not there quite yet, but we're going in that direction. And that's what Harris wants. No dissent. We will tell you how to live. Here's the worst thing that I come across. And a Catholic organization has taken out political ads on this, which will begin running this week, the largest Catholic organization in the country. Kamala Harris believes that parents do not have the right to know if their children have gender-altering surgery or take drugs prescribed to them to alter their gender. She does not believe parents have the right to know that. You don't get more radical than that.
Yeah, no question. And by the way, as we saw her also talking about the migrants funding the transition surgery for migrants.
But, when in confronting the presidents, I hope everybody at WABC checks the book out. You will learn an enormous amount, all of it relevant to today. I say that Joe Biden is the second worst president ever, next to James Buchanan, who was a coward and allowed the South to rise up. Biden, and I say it because Biden has created the problems. Most of the bad presidents, Herbert Hoover, people like that, they inherited the problems of the Great Depression and could not solve them. Jimmy Carter, another example. Biden created the border, not Congress, nobody. He wrote the executive order. Stand down, Homeland Security. Allow millions of foreign nationals into the country. Release them unattended if they ask for asylum. He did it. He also attacked the fossil fuel industry and ordered the Secretary of the Treasury to print all of these dollars, which ignited inflation from 1.4 to more than 9% in a year. That was Biden alone who did it. And that's why he is the second worst president ever. And Harris has endorsed every single thing he did.
Hey, Bill, this is Pete King. Going back, probably no one knows Donald Trump better than you do. Do you think there's any chance he will take that advice?
I don't know why he's doing what he's doing. I'm going to try to get over to the rally as a journalist on Wednesday at the Nassau Coliseum. I don't know. I think Trump may be mad at me because I don't affirm everything he does.
He gets mad at all of us once in a while.
Yeah, I haven't heard from him in about 3 weeks. I sent him a copy of Confronting the Presidents, but he didn't acknowledge getting it, but I know he got it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Congressman. I mean, you have been in politics a long time. Would you put out a tweet, I hate Taylor Swift?
No, I think it's all crazy what he's doing. But, again, he's different from the rest of us. So I just hope somebody can get to him. Maybe you can do it.
Maybe. And look, I'm only doing it not for Donald Trump, but for my country.
The country, absolutely.
Yes. We're all, it's not being about, it's nothing to be with, we're Democrats or Republicans. We're Americans. Right. And we want our country to survive.
Right. You want the best for the nation. Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Bill. I'll be listening at 9 o'clock tonight, and one of us has to get the message across. You. I don't know if you heard at the beginning of the show. My message to him is hunker down because you got to get elected, and if you're dead, you're not going to get elected.
Well, I agree, and maybe I'll have access to him on Wednesday. Of course, I'll report it first on WABC.
Yeah, keep us posted. So much. Bill, thank you very much. Wow, what a powerful show, you guys. What do we all stand for after the show?
Truth, justice, and the American way. God bless America.
Janine Pirro here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro for your free Janine Pirro Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit, or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 now to receive a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.